Hey guys, I just bought a new tractor. I've decided I'm doing a brand change. All those orange and red and yellow and tan, nah, we're going green now. For those of you that know the history of Oliver and who all's tractors they bought, you know I'm just kidding. For those of you that don't know, I'll fill you in. This says Oliver 500 on it. If we take a look over here, what does it say? David Brown, B-R-O-W-N. You can kind of see it there behind the filter. So after the conclusion of the David Brown 900, which there's one right there, they went to the 850 and 950. You guys may have seen my video about that 950 that we ended up lighting the engine on fire to get it broke loose. So this tractor underneath is actually an 850 David Brown. The only real differences are the hood's the same as far as I can tell. The decals say Oliver instead of David Brown. This little emblem, instead of being a David Brown shield, has the little Oliver shield on it. I don't know the name of that logo, but the David Browns had a shield or a crest on them. After a certain point, my Cropmaster doesn't have it, the 900 doesn't have it. But like if you had a 990 or a 1210, it either had, earlier ones I believe had a plastic logo that went in here that said David Brown on it and had like 2 flowers and then DB on it. Or the later ones would have had a sticker there that said that. The grill is different on this. It snaps in like that. And these are supposed to be as rare as hen's teeth because, well, you just saw why. They're held in with one little tension pin and 2 little clips. This one was cool enough. It still has the little aluminum pieces that hold the hood down in the front. I don't know if I've ever seen one that still had both of those and the flanges that hold them still intact. They built these so that the 850 David Brown became the 500 Oliver, the 950 David Brown became the 600 Oliver. David Brown really didn't import tractors to the US until after this deal with Oliver. However, they did import them into Canada. That's where that 900 came from, that Cropmaster came from, or Prairie Cropmaster. And the 950 that I have, it was a Canadian import to the US. But under Oliver, they would get imported to the US. So this one, the reason I bought it is, one, it was close to home and a fairly reasonable price. And it's in pretty decent shape. I mean, the tach says 3,900 hours, but it doesn't work and the needle's laying in the bottom. Still has the original seat with the Oliver sticker on it, which is cool. My 950 has one with the David Brown sticker on it. This still has the Implematic top link. So if you're familiar with the Selectomatic system at all, they have a top link that has a hydraulic cylinder in it, essentially, that sits on top of the PTO box. It has a little cable that lets it know how much load is being applied to the top link as opposed to the arms. On the Implematic tractors, there's this little cable here, which is in its storage position right now, so I thought it was missing at first. It clips in here, and it actually comes out here, and it'll clip into this little clip on the top link. And that is your sensing. So this piece here, I believe there's a spring or something in there that allows it to slide and let it know where the load's being applied to the implement. These were designed for plowing, is what they work super well with. So that cable's there, which is really cool. I don't have my David Brown plows over here where I would test that right now. I'm not sure this is enough tractor to lift those plows because the 900 did not appreciate them until we put the super short arms on it. The other neat feature that this has, I guess this does not have 2-speed PTO like my Cropmaster. It does not have the belt pulley gearbox like the 900 and the Cropmaster have. It must have been an option and this one didn't get it. But what this one did get, I believe they call it a pickup hitch. It's the first one of these I've seen in the US. I've seen pictures of them overseas. I've seen them on, 990s, 1210s. I don't know if I've ever seen one on a 9094 series, but I don't see why you couldn't put one on because the parts are all the same. But this one has it, which is really cool. And neither of the 900s or the Cropmaster have it, and my 950 doesn't have it. So the idea behind this is, this is your leveling box for your 3-point hitch. I have the other arm for it in the truck, and it has a muffler, but the exhaust manifold top's broken, but I think I can weld it up, and I might be able to take the one off my 950 and put on this one. It's not rusted. It looks like somebody bumped into like a low barn door or something and broke it. So how this worked was, you have, leveling box and this guy here, which would normally operate your 3-point hitch. I'm not sure where those are supposed to be mounted on this one. I think they're also mounted on this same thing, but it looks like they don't have a pin long enough. Move the top link over and out of the way here. So you have this little mechanism here, this U-shaped piece. It goes up there, and it goes on those as well. Now I believe there's supposed to be linkage that goes from, at least on the later tractors, there was linkage that went from like up here to here, so you could still use your 3-point hitch and this. The way this one's set up, it appears they just have it set up for pickup hitch, but it's not quite right with bolts and stuff. But essentially how this worked is, that would go there, I believe, the way they have it set up. I'd like to get it set up so I can do both. But we'll see. I'll have to look at some pictures and figure out how it works. And if you guys know, let me know in the comments section, and we'll figure this out together. This can swing on there like a normal tractor drawbar would. You can put a pin in there to lock it any which way. Like for plowing, I think you have to put them to the side to have clearance for the plow, like a normal drawbar. And so what you could do is you could back up to, say, your manure spreader. And instead of using a jack to pick it up, or, let's say it didn't have a jack, that was an option, or even just a hay wagon that you didn't feel like picking up the hitch on, you could drop this down with your 3-point hitch, back right up to it, lift the lever up, put your pin in. You don't need to play with a jack anymore, is I believe the theory behind it. I don't know why the sway chains are there, because it can't really sway, but this is a really cool piece that I thought I would like to have in my collection. It did come with new front tires. They're not name brand, they're D-Stone. I don't have a problem with them because we bought a set for our backhoe a little while ago. They seem to be pretty decent tires so far. The back tires, the guy was concerned that, oh, they're old and cracked and they'll need replaced. Well, I've run a lot worse tires with a lot more checks and cracks than that, and not really had any problems. So I think these will survive just fine for the whole 35 horsepower that this thing has. That fender's dinged up a little bit, mismatched tires, but they have about the same tread, they're about the same age. Not a big deal. They put a head gasket in it because it had water in the oil, or oil in the water, I forget what he said. It's got some silicone there, it's got some silicone on the oil pan. There's a lot of silicone on the oil pan, but it's not leaking, although it appears it leaked a lot at one time, but these tend to do that. No power steering on this, and it would have been power assist if it had that option. This one didn't have that option, but it does have the other pickup hitch, which was a neat option to have. And then the top link, they generally didn't survive this long over here in the US because they were such a weird thing, a weird setup. Nobody else really did anything like that. And even the later David Browns, they used the top link mount for the sensing rather than the top link itself. So I was happy just to have that and the pickup hitch. And the tractor's in pretty decent shape. I mean, it's got some dents and dings and some rust, but it's a pretty reasonable example of a tractor that's, from the late 50s and worked all its life. The battery box is added on. The guy didn't say if he made that or where it came from, but it's pretty cool. And you can use shorter cables that way, which is nice, although those are just hardly big enough. They work for now in the warm weather. Originally, it would have had two 6-volt batteries in here. I'm curious, it does not have a decompression lever. I didn't think so. So the 900s had decompression lever, which is nice. So when battery technology was pretty bad back in the day, you could either hand crank your diesel, or you could throw your decompression lever, crank it, get the motor up to speed without so much resistance from compression, throw the decompression lever and it'll start. Yes, there were batteries, but the batteries weren't necessarily good enough on a cold day to get you where you needed to be, even with two 6 volts paired together to get you 12 volts. We've used it on Nate's 900 over there in times when we're doing lots of starts and stops, like lining it up for belt work. And if the battery gets low, you can still crank it without getting the engine up to speed as fast, because you throw the decompression lever, crank it up to speed, throw the decompression, and it'll start. My 950 doesn't have it, and I was kind of curious whether this one would or not, and it does not. These are neat because they have a hole, a round hole like the later tractors for the coolant, whereas the early ones, I believe, had a square hole. Yeah, these have a square hole. But it's still the same basic design. I believe the block's even the same on them. This 900 uses the older style oil filter. The like 850, 950, 500, 600 Olivers use the later style one, like this, that uses that. I actually put one of these off my 950 on my Cropmaster because the oil filters for the big cast housing like that they're very hard to come by in the States. As far as I know, they're not easy to get in England. But these filters, I believe, are the same as like a 990 would have, which is pretty handy. These still have an oil bath air cleaner on them. It's simple, works great. The blow-by gets put back into the intake manifold on these ones, which is cool. It has a new rocker cover gasket. It's got the hood latches and stuff still on it. It's wired up for push button start right now, which is pretty neat. It's never had a loader on it because it's still got the plugs in there. This piece here, I don't know if these tractors still had that option. On the 900s, and I think my 950, no, the 950 doesn't have it. My Cropmaster has it. This here has a piece of linkage that would go to a lever back there to operate your clutch for helping you attach implements while you're not on the tractor. So you could use the lever back there as your clutch instead of having to get off and on and on and off. But it was a good way to run yourself over. Oh, there's the data tag. I've been looking for that and I couldn't figure out where they put it on these. The David Browns, they put them on the fenders. I'm going to go get something and clean that off so we can read it, because I'm curious what they look like. I've never seen the Oliver tag before. I've always seen the David Brown tags. And there's usually stamping down here on the frame. And they're usually like back here on the fenders, if I remember properly. I'll go get some brake clean and clean that off so we can read it. The other thing the guy said it had wrong with it was it would get some air in the fuel system, and it has some dirt running through the fuel system. The tank's not very clean, and there's a lot of stuff settling out in there. He said it'll start up cold just fine, but after a while sometimes it starves for fuel. I can see that there's some rust coming through there. He said it sat a long time before his brother and him got a hold of it and did some work to it. I'm curious what the tag says, because like the David Browns that were built for Case, I believe they said built for J.I. Case, a Tenneco company. Curious what this has to say, if I can read it at all. So I got the tag cleaned up. The grease, there was a lot of it, but it preserved it well. So VAD is Vehicle Agricultural Diesel. So there, if it was a gas one, it would have been VAG, or if it was a kerosene one, it would have been VAK. So like one of the first David Browns was a VAK1. That was a Vehicle Agricultural Kerosene Edition 1. This is a 2, which I'm not sure what the 2 means, and OA may have been like the specifications that it got a pickup hitch and the options it got. And then there's the serial number, 100629D. I mean, imagine D's for diesel, and usually they would start with a number, like my Cropmaster is like SPP 10,009, I think it is, which means it's number 9. So this is 629. This is a fairly early one of these. I don't know how many they built under the Oliver name, or if that information's even out there as being, you know, one's built for Oliver, one's built for David Brown. But that's pretty cool that the serial tag's in good shape. I will look up that stuff later, and if I can find the sheet on the internet and see what that stuff means. It needs a bath. It's very greasy still, but being it's got a lot of parts of it are clean, I imagine it was much dirtier beforehand. It has the 6-speed transmission in it, 3-speed with reverse, high and low. These little pieces there were for the battery box lids, which I've never seen any of those intact. It's got the CAV Lucas injection pump. I don't know, it's just all around it's a neat unit. It's still got Whitworth bolts on it, which makes it interesting. Most of the bolts on this one are Whitworth. On my 950, I did find a couple that weren't, but it was on things that they had changed from the 900s. Anything they could leave the same from the 900s, they did. I imagine these are the same way, that anything that was a new addition became SAE. Anything that they still had the Whitworth parts on the shelf for, they used those. I'm really looking forward to fixing this one up because it is such a neat piece. I don't know that these are rare, but they're not incredibly common. But of this era, it's far more common to see the Oliver version of these than the David Brown version of these in the States anyway, just because of the way the imports were at the time. This still uses the 5-bolt front wheels like the 900s and the big 6-bolt pattern in the back. I believe it's the same dash as the later tractors though, with the light switch knob, the big tack, and the 2 holes there. It resembles my 950 dash very closely. The Cropmaster dash is a little different. It's more like the 900 dashes. They're a little more simple. So the other thing with these tractors, being Whitworth, a lot of guys didn't like to work on them because they were Whitworth. You needed special tools to work on them, and it just was not fun if you didn't have the tools. Now these guys said they were able to do the head gasket with SAE and metric tools and crescent wrenches. And I thought that was interesting. They were able to get that done without using the proper tools. But when you get into major overhaul, you do need the tools, because there are places in that engine where you can't get a crescent wrench, and that's the only tool that the average mechanic has that will fit the bolt. So the Whitworth tools, if you're doing major work on these, is very handy to have. Anyway guys, this is a really neat tractor. I'm very excited for it. If you have any tips, tricks, or stories about having one of these in your family, or having one of these now, let me know. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about these. They are a pretty cool little tractor. Not the most powerful. This one's not the prettiest girl at the dance, but it still runs pretty good. I suppose I ought to start it up for you and drive it around. Another issue with this, I noticed the little control rod there for the 3-point hitch has snapped off of its lever. If you use it vice grips on it, it still works. 3-point hitch still works. So we're in neutral, turn the fuel on, key on. And that's basically what he said it'll do when it gets dirt in the fuel. Once you get it running, it runs pretty good. Steering wheel's in nice shape. Brakes are good. I've noticed something, that wheel bearing needs attention, because I can see the seals on both of them. Make it grunt here for you. And I will show you that little part of the manifold that's broke, because It's not a big deal, and I don't know what that little clamp there's for. But you can see it's broken there on the side, but it's not rusted out, so I might be able to weld something around it or come up with a better clamp than a couple of hose clamps. And worst case, I make a new one of those little flanges. It's probably going to need some adjustments and some cleaning up, but all in all, it seems like a pretty decent tractor with a lot of life left in it. So guys, thanks for watching. Let me know if you know anything about these, if you've had one in your family or a story about them, or if you know how the pickup hitch is supposed to be attached. I'm very curious to see how that's going to work out. But thanks for watching, and if you want to see more about this tractor or any of the other antiques in the lineup there, or not antiques like that one, make sure to subscribe, because they all need some work from time to time, and I like filming it and I like working on them, and you guys seem to as well. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you know when I'm working on one of these again. And there are plenty of other tractors that are not in this lineup that need some work as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. And remember, if your hands are clean, you're probably not farming with junk.